So it's the little things that make a difference, right? The small details, usually seemingly insignificant choices or decisions that ended up having the biggest impact. Usually the little things influence the big things the most. You know, a lot of times what we can do is we can look at a goal or an outcome that we want or a challenge or an obstacle, and we can just say, you know what, I'm gonna will my way to this. I'm gonna muscle to it with talent and determination. I'm gonna make this thing happen, whatever outcome it is that we want or whatever challenge that we're trying to overtake. And there's some virtue in that, like talent and determination. Those are great things. But 100 meters of talent isn't good enough for a 200-meter race. Like if you're not showing up to the gym every week, if you're not training, if you're not eating the right way, if you're not getting enough sleep or not even good sleep, man, it doesn't matter how much talent you have in the world. When you show up to that race, you're not gonna win. You're just not. I mean, look at Usain Bolt, Jamaican sprinter, probably the greatest sprinter in the history of the world. He's the fastest man on the planet. This guy has talent that the world has never seen before. But when he was competing, this guy focused not on his talent, but he focused on the little things. He was in the gym every single day for 90 minutes doing very specific workouts around strength training. Then he would go to the track and do speed training. On top of that, every single meal that he ate, every single day was planned out specifically. He knew exactly what he was gonna eat, how much of it he was gonna eat, and when he would eat it every single day. This guy has talent that the world hasn't seen before. 8-time Olympic gold medalist, holding the world records that he holds. But he didn't focus on his talent. He focused on the little things. And the same thing is true if you flip that coin. If you're looking at an obstacle or a challenge or a goal that you want, and you're looking at it thinking, you know what? This is too big. Like I can't get there. That's too much to ask. I can't overcome this. Then what you're doing is you're just focusing on the finish line. And you're taking out the most important piece of the equation. It's the little things along the way. I mean, the little things matter. They matter in business. They matter in sports. They matter in medicine. But the little things also matter in character development and in spiritual formation. It's the little things that will take you from where you're at right now to a place later on that you didn't think you could get to. It'll grow you. They'll grow you from where you're at right now into something that you didn't think was possible. The little things matter. And they definitely matter with what we're gonna hit on today. Now, we've only got a couple weeks left in this series that we've been calling Contrary to Popular Belief. We're looking at this list of marks in Romans 12. These marks should be evident in the life of anyone who calls himself a Christian. Now, it doesn't mean that you've mastered them, and it doesn't mean that you are the poster child for this list. That's not what it means. It's all about, hey, am I striving for this? Is this something that I want? Am I progressively growing in these? And the mark that we're gonna hit on today, in my opinion, this is the hardest one on the list. Actually, let me say it this way. Personally, this is the hardest one for me. Like you might be so much better at this and so much further along than I am in this mark, and I hope that's true. And it really plays into what we talked about last week. Last week we talked about how we live in this increasingly inhospitable world. So our secret weapon in an inhospitable world is hospitality. I mean, talent, intelligence, innovation, those are all great things. Great things. We have those things. But our secret weapon, if you are a Christian, is hospitality. It's what will make you distinctive in a world that's lacking it. It will also authenticate your faith and authenticate the truth of the gospel. The word for hospitality in Romans 12 means love to strangers. That's what it means. So hospitality is showing genuine love to the strangers that are right in front of you by taking care of their needs. And strangers are people that you don't know, but they're also people that you don't agree with, or people that don't like you, or people that believe differently from you. So the mark that we hit on last week was, hey, be known for showing hospitality to people who are inhospitable to you. And that should mark all of us as Christians. Jesus tells a story too about hospitality. This is Matthew 25. Jesus says, then the king, this is Jesus, then the king will say to those on his right, come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you fed me. I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me into your home. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you cared for me. I was in prison, and you visited me. Then these righteous ones will reply, Lord, like when did we ever see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink, or a stranger and show you hospitality, or naked and give you clothing? When did we ever see you sick or in prison and visit you? And the king will say, I tell you the truth. When you did it to one of the least of my brothers and sisters, you were doing it to me, the least of these. It's the down and outs. It's the people that can't return the favor to you. It's also the people that you think of less in your mind. People that you don't like or you disagree with or have offended you, that you couldn't think less of them. Well, you've made them the least of these now, so you've got to include them too. But there's also one more group that falls into the least of these category, and it's the group that we want nothing to do with. We want to forget about this group. We don't ever want to acknowledge them. Maybe we just want to get back at them. It's your enemies. Romans 12:14 says this, bless those who persecute you. Bless, and do not curse them. Wait a second, that's got to be a typo though, right? Paul couldn't have meant that. Like, bless those who persecute you? I thought we were supposed to lash out at them on social media. Like, I thought we were supposed to cancel them, right? Or gossip about them. I thought we were supposed to return the favor, lay into them, give it back twice as bad as what they did to me. What do you mean, bless those that persecute you? Like, is this for real? Well, Romans 12 actually doubles down on it. 12:19 says this, beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God. For it is written, vengeance is mine. I will repay, says the Lord. To the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he's thirsty, give him something to drink. Does that sound familiar? For by doing so, you will heap burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. So contrary to popular belief, Christians, we are not to be marked by an eye for an eye mentality. So what are we supposed to do? Just take it? Is that what we're supposed to do, Matt? Like, am I just like, if somebody wrongs me intentionally, if they hurt me, if they take advantage of me, God forbid that they persecute me, am I just supposed to take that? Because that's kind of what I hear you saying is just take it. Well, you're not supposed to take it. You're not supposed to take it or retaliate against it. You and I are called to something much, much more. You're called to overcome it. And that's not flippant motivational talk either. It's also not rubbing the proverbial dirt on it and just saying, hey, whatever you dealt with, just suck it up and get over it. That's not what Romans is saying at all. We need to take in some of the context here. Like, who this was written to has it a whole lot worse than what you and I have experienced. Like, all of us have experienced wrongs and hurts before. That's real. That's very real. But the Christians that this letter was originally written to in Rome, who Paul is talking about, they all had it much worse than any of us have ever experienced before. In Rome, at this time period, in Rome, Christians were being used as human torches at Nero's garden parties. Like, no joke. They're being hunted down, grabbed, taken to the emperor's palace, lit on fire so that they could light up Nero's garden parties. Or they were being thrown to the lions in the Colosseum simply for public entertainment. And the only reason why is because they're Christians. I mean, that's intense. You and I don't have to be worried about getting lit on fire right now. Like, we don't have to worry about getting thrown into the middle of Empower Field today and have to fight off lions. Like, that's not going to happen to any of us in here, but that's who Paul's talking to. He's saying, hey, bless those who persecute you, bless them and don't curse them. The people that come after you and beat you. The people that come and take you to Nero's palace. The people that throw you into the Colosseum. Those people, bless them, don't curse them. That's quite a standard. That's big. Now, none of us have experienced that level before, so why is this so hard? Like, again, this is the hardest one on the entire list for me. Like why does it feel so unjust to bless someone who has hurt me or wronged me or taken advantage of me? Like, why is it so hard? Why does it, I look at this list and think, you know what, I just can't overcome this evil that's happened to me. It's just too big of an ask. Why does it feel like this list, this mark is just something I'm never gonna get to? Well, I think it's hard for all of us for multiple reasons. Like one reason it's hard to bless those who persecute you, bless those who hurt you or wrong you, is because it would feel good and vindicating to return the favor, wouldn't it? Like that person that's insulted your family, or that person that stuck it to you in that deal, or the person that took advantage of your kindness, or the one that smeared your name. I mean, you can just name the person and fill in the blank to whatever happened to you, like giving it back to them in return, which is just a nice way of saying revenge. That just feels like justice, doesn't it? Feels like vindication. And it would feel good, wouldn't it? It would definitely feel good to let that person have it. Man, that would feel good. Like to get back at them, to tell people the truth about them, to sabotage their next deal because they deserve it. It's just giving them a taste of their own medicine. I've been there many times with people that have hurt me or wronged me or taken advantage of me. And to the world, that's pretty fair. It's fair game. But that's why Romans 12 says, to the contrary. Contrary to popular belief, like you and I, we're not called to return fire. People are gonna wrong you. It's gonna happen. It's just gonna happen. So don't be surprised by it when it happens. Instead, surprise them by your response that is something completely different than what they would expect from you or what they've experienced themselves. Like, know this. Hurt people hurt people. Hurt people will hurt people. Hurt just gets passed down the line. Someone who hurts you, that's coming from their own place of hurt that happened from someone else or something else. Doesn't excuse it at all. Doesn't excuse it. But it just falls down the line. What Romans is actually saying is that you can stop this domino effect of hurt being passed down the line. Instead, you can actually send good back up the line. So when someone hurts you, you respond by blessing them. You respond with kindness. And what that will do first and foremost is that will mess with their head. Like, wait a second. You're not going to burn this bridge between you and I? The relationship's not over? Like, what? Wait, hold on. Why are you being kind to me? That will mess with someone's head. That's what heaping burning coals on their head is all about. If you are kind to your enemy, if you bless those who wrong you, what that's going to do is it's going to mess with their head to the point where they might repent and change. Unmerited kindness will have a profound effect on someone who has wronged you. And even if it doesn't, it will have an effect on somebody else who's watching the situation or knows about it. If the world sees nothing different in us, if we return evil for evil, wrong for wrong, hurt for hurt, then we are no different. We are not contrary to the world around us. But instead, if we bless, if we return the favor with unmerited kindness, that's probably the most Christ-like thing we could ever do. That sounds a lot like Jesus, returning blessing and kindness to sheer evil and hurt and wronging. And that can cause transformation in people. It can cause huge transformation. Now first, that person that hurt you and you respond with blessing and kindness, now when that happens to them, when somebody wrongs and hurts them, they're gonna respond to that the same way you did to them, which is gonna mess with that person's head. And then they're gonna do the same thing and the same thing and the same thing on and on and on after that. There's this multiplication that just starts to spread, multiplication of kindness and blessing that replaces wrongdoing and revenge. And it spread and it started all from your response that was completely contrary to the world that we live in. For Christians, contrary will catch people's attention. Contrary will cause change. And contrary, it's Christ-like. But it's still hard, especially the greater the hurt. I mean, there is hurt and pain in this room right now and online. I mean, real quick, hey, just put up your hands. How many of you have been hurt by somebody before? Put up your hands. Now keep them up. Look around the room. you're not alone. Like, we've all been hurt. We've all been wronged. We've all been wounded. And some of you, you have experienced horrific things, sheer evil being done to you, or people that you know, or people that you love. I know that because I've heard some of your stories. And I've also been a pastor long enough to know that there are stories in this room right now and online that nobody's putting their hand up for or haven't been shared before. And I just want you to know I hurt with you. Our church hurts with you. In your story, your pain, your hurt, whatever it is, it's welcome here and it's safe here. But most importantly, I want you to know this. Jesus grieves with you. He weeps with you. He suffered the worst kind of evil and betrayal and pain that any of us could ever imagine. And he went through that not so he could look at you and say, hey, that thing that you're dealing with or that thing that happened in your past, you know what? It's not nearly as bad as what happened to me, so just get over it. That's not what he's saying at all. Instead, he can look at you and say, hey, that thing that you're dealing with right now or that thing that happened all those years ago, I hate that you're experiencing that. I hate the pain that that's caused you. I know how that feels. You're not crazy for feeling that way. I can empathize with you. That's a gift. That's an encouragement. But then this life that we are called to be marked by, where we overcome evil with good, where we bless those who hurt us, Jesus went first. He did it first. He prayed for the forgiveness. Get this, man. He prayed for the forgiveness of the people who were unjustly killing him while it was happening. Like this whole, hey, mark that we're called to live by in Romans 12, where we're supposed to overcome evil with good. We're supposed to bless those who persecute you. Jesus went first. Man, he went first so we could follow the example of our God who practices what he preaches. But there's still more reasons why this is hard. Another reason why it's hard is resentment. All of us have to deal with resentment, or resentment will deal with us. Like resentment, boiling it down, it is just the complaint that life did not unfold the way that you planned. You didn't get what you wanted. Things happened the way you didn't think they were going to happen. Things unfolded the way you weren't planning on it. Or something happened to you that shouldn't happen. What resentment will do is, it is a silent killer that will destroy a life from the inside out. And the only thing that comes from that, it becomes fertile soil where only bitterness can grow. Bitterness grows very quickly out of resentment. And all of us have to deal with this. Henry Nouwen, who was an author that did most of his writing in the mid-20th century, he said this: resentment is cold, agonizing anger. When hot anger grows cold, it hardens your heart and wreaks havoc in your life. Resentment makes you suspicious, cynical, and depressed. Over the long term, resentment becomes a way of being. That sounds horrible and miserable, doesn't it? And it's true. Like, we've all met somebody who's gotten to that point where it just feels like resentment is a way of life for them, and you feel awful for them. You probably don't want to be around them. And you hope, man, I hope this never happens to me. Maybe that's where you're at right now. This is the point where resentment has just become a way of being for you. But all of us have to deal with this. Nobody is immune to resentment because every single one of us have had things in our lives unfold in ways that we didn't plan. But what becomes very easy is for us to think that resentment does not exist in our own hearts and our own minds. Nouwen goes on and he says this: when you cling to your complaints, your heart is full of resentment, and there is no room for God to enter and set you free. Resentment curtails the movements of the Spirit and diminishes the kingdom within. It replaces faith, hope, and charity with fear, doubt, and rivalry. It makes an enormous difference in our personal and communal lives, whether we respond to life in anger and resentment or in love and gratitude. Our world responds to almost everything with anger and resentment, does it not? So much anger and resentment, which is why we see all of the division and competition and rivalry and bitterness in our world, which makes it very easy for us. Our opportunity is teed up for us to be contrary to all of that. We are set up to be contrary to that world. But we will miss out on that opportunity. We will completely miss it if we never deal with our own resentment, our own unmet expectations, our own things that we didn't get what we wanted, or the things that happened to us causing us pain. If we don't deal with those things, then we're just going to be resentful like the world around us is. And what resentment will do is it will steal the joy and focus out of your life, and it will convince you that it is some outside factor or force that's doing that to you. While all along, you're just being robbed from the inside out. Your resentment is stealing it from you. We have to deal with it. And the way we deal with it is gratitude. Gratitude is the and the antidote to resentment. It allows you to let go of your anger. Gratitude is not something that we do, it's something we can be. It's an attitude, it's a perspective. It starts with, I'm gonna trust God, I'm gonna look up to him, I'm gonna trust him that he has brought me to this point for a purpose. I'm gonna trust him that he's been working in my past for a purpose, and I'm gonna trust him I can be grateful for all kinds of things today. Like every single one of us, no matter what your circumstances are, every single one of us here in the room and online, we all have multiple things that we can be grateful for. At the very least, you can be grateful that you have breath in your lungs. Today will be the last day for many people. So if you wake up tomorrow morning, right out of the gate, you can be grateful for another day. And from there, you can make a list. Here's all the things that I can be grateful for. And they can just be little things. Little things. But this is really hard. Gratitude requires a lot of discipline because resentment is always going to be vying for your thoughts and your focus. Naturally, if we just leave ourselves alone, we will drift towards resentment and not gratitude. So it takes discipline, it's hard. But gratitude is one of the little things that will cause big transformation in your life. And along with gratitude, there's another little thing that we can get better at. I'll say, here's a little thing I can get better at. Maybe you're better than this than I am. But besides gratitude, we also need to get better at overlooking. Like a lot of times when we see that challenge or that evil or that wronging or that obstacle that we have in front of us, we think, it's too big. I can't do it. I can't get over this. I can't let go of this resentment. I can't get to this place where I overcome that evil. I can't overcome this. So what we need to learn how to do is start to overlook. Proverbs 19:11 says, sensible people control their temper. They earn respect by overlooking wrongs. Overlooking wrongs. Now first, let me be very clear on this. This does not mean cover up. This does not mean push something aside that's happened to you or shove something under the rug. That's not what this means at all. It is not hey, just ignore the people that have hurt you. Don't worry about it. Just get over it, suck it up. That's not what this is. This is not, you get to walk free card to anyone who has hurt or taken advantage of or abused or wronged someone. That's not what this is. Justice will happen. We serve a God of justice. Remember what Romans says. It says, hey, vengeance is mine, says the Lord. I will repay. Justice is coming at some point. Vengeance will happen. People will have to be held accountable for what they've said and done. So if you've been wronged or abused, and that's the thing. Man, can I just tell you the hardest thing for me as a pastor is when I hear abuse stories. And it's also the thing that gets me mad the quickest. I've heard so many abuse stories over the years. From kids to women to men too. All kinds of abuse, you name it. And stuff that I won't even tell Kelly because I don't want it in her head. I have to go to a couple other friends of mine that I can just process some of the evil that happens in this world. What this verse is saying, if that's you, if you've experienced that, this is not saying just ignore that and shove it under the rug. That's not what that's saying. This is all about looking over the little things so that you don't let resentment take a foothold in your own heart. Because if it does, you're going to be marked by bitterness, not joy. So overcoming starts with overlooking. That's where we start. What are we talking about overlooking? What wrongs, what offenses? Think small, think really small. Maybe the offense that you can overlook, maybe your spouse is constantly fault finding with you. That can be frustrating. Now, my wife has no faults, so I could never do this to her. I don't know if she's in here or not, but I'm gonna try to score some points. But seriously, if your spouse is constantly finding faults in you, fair or not, that can be hard to deal with. That's an offense, that's a wrong that you can overlook. It doesn't mean that you don't talk about it with him or her. It just means you do it graciously, without firing back, without being resentful. Or maybe the wrong that you can overlook is unfair criticism. How many of you have ever been unfairly criticized? Anybody? A lot of hands should go up. A lot of hands should go up, right? Unfair criticism can get under your skin pretty quickly, can't it? I mean, that's an offense. That's a wrong that you can overlook. And when it comes to criticism, don't take criticism from somebody that you wouldn't take advice from. Like we should always take any criticism we get, who cares what the source is, and say, you know what, is there any truth in this? Is there a nugget of truth that I can apply to myself here? But then consider the source. Would I take advice from this person? Has this person ever encouraged me? If the answer is no, let go of that criticism, overlook the unfair stuff. Or maybe something that we can overlook is the rudeness from a stranger, or a harsh word from another classmate, or somebody who is driving 15 miles per hour under the speed limit in the left lane won't move over. That's something that I have a hard time overlooking. If you've not picked up on this yet, like that's just an area for me to grow in. These are all little things, little offenses and wrongs that we can overlook, which will prevent resentment from getting a hold of your heart or your mind. And what you're actually doing on top of that is you're taking a step towards being able to overcome the big stuff. Learning to overcome the biggest offenses starts by overlooking the smallest. It's progress. Overcoming slander begins with overlooking a sarcastic comment. Overcoming betrayal begins with overlooking a cold shoulder. Overcoming persecution, that begins with overlooking criticism. Overcoming starts with overlooking the little things. And overlooking starts with looking up. That's the littlest of things. 1 Peter 2:19 says this, "For this is a gracious thing when, mindful of God, one endures sorrows while suffering unjustly." Mindful of God, that means look up. I'm gonna look up at him in all the everyday little offenses and wrongs that I suffer. I'm gonna look up at God and know, I'm gonna trust that he can bring me through this. I'm gonna trust in who he is and what he's done for me in the past, which will allow me to take this little offense, this little wrong that every single one of us face on a daily basis. You're gonna get wronged today in some small fashion, maybe something big. But being mindful of God, looking up to him, trusting who he is and what he's done, I can overlook that, not allow resentment to set in, and now I'm training myself to overcome when the big stuff happens. Man, I think this is one of the reasons why our world is so nasty to each other. Man, we are offended and go to war over the slightest offense, the slightest wrong, the slightest misperception. And I think it's because our society has never learned how to overlook the little stuff, the stuff that doesn't matter. And now resentment has been embedded into our culture. This can happen to the church too. And if it does, we are not contrary to the world we live in. We are not showing something better, something that's freeing, something that's for everyone. Be the person that overcomes the big by overlooking the little. Be the person that's marked by gratitude and joy, not resentment and retaliation. And this is your way out. This is your way out. This is your way out of a hardened heart. This is your way out of doubt and disappointment and revenge and bitterness. This is the way out. I mean, look at Peter and John. Peter and John, they get arrested by the Pharisees. They get arrested and the Pharisees grab them and say, you guys got to stop telling people about Jesus. You got to stop preaching about the resurrection. And Peter and John are like, how? How can we stop telling people about this? We saw it with our own eyes. Jesus walked out of the grave. We've seen a resurrected person. To my knowledge, that's never happened in history. That's a pretty big deal. We probably should tell people about it because it also authenticates everything that he said. We're going to tell people about what we've heard and what we've seen. We can't stop. That's for you guys too. So instead, they beat him. They can't kill him yet. Later on, they're going to kill Peter, and they're going to try to kill John. They can't kill him yet because of popular opinion. So instead, they beat him within an inch of their life, beat him badly. How unjust is that? They got beaten within an inch of their life because they were talking about Jesus, because of their faith in Jesus, which, by the way, happens all the time today in different parts of the world. Incredibly unjust. But on top of that, the Pharisees used the law to do it. So not only was it unjust, it was corrupt. Peter and John had every reason in the world to be resentful. But they went back to the church rejoicing. They weren't resentful, they were rejoicing. How? Like, how can you do that? It's because they were looking up. They were mindful of God. They were looking up, enduring why they suffered unjustly. And because they were looking up, they learned how to overlook the small things. And because they were looking up and overlooking the small things, they were able to overcome the big things. It's pretty awful to be beaten because of your faith. And they overcame it, not with resentment, but they came out of it rejoicing. I'm not there yet. I want to be. Because this is where you will see real joy. You will experience real joy. You will experience real freedom in your life. And not only if you do this, you're going to be introducing people to something completely new. People that have hurt you and wronged you and taken advantage of you and, God forbid, persecute you. What you're going to be doing is you're introducing them to Jesus. It's the most Christ-like thing that you can do. Father, I pray that right now that you would let us be marked by this, that we overcome evil with good, that we would be able to endure suffering and do it well. Keep our eyes fixed on you, that we are looking up and trusting you, that there is a purpose that you have, that you are working in ways that maybe we don't understand. Train us how to overlook the small offenses in our lives, to offer forgiveness and grace and heal ourselves. Do not let resentment take a foothold in our church, in us as individuals. And if there is, I pray that you would break that. And help us overcome the big stuff when it happens. Not with resentment, but with rejoicing. And let that mess with people's heads so that we receive revival and change and repentance and growth and freedom and ultimately grace. We love you. It's in your precious name we pray. Amen.